we are almost at the halfway point for updates in 2024 in Marvel Future Fight. And to say that this year's updates have been focused primarily on PvP would be very obvious and an understatement. They've been pushing PvP so hard with the updates so far this year, even though we've gotten some really good PvE characters like a Gladiator and Scarlet Witch. And there's also another topic of, all the native tier 2s that they've been pushing as tier 4s, but mainly they've been moving the meta along by introducing new tier 4s that they believe will have or should have an impact in PvP. So yeah, let's kick it off here with Angel. These are all the tier 4s, first of all, released this year. I have included some that are not new tier 4s, like Hulk and Thor and Thanos. These are tier 4s from last year or the year before, but I decided to include them mainly because they got uniforms that in a large part like changed them a lot, right? But for the most part, Hulk and Thor have no PvP business these days. Hulk more so than Thor, but Thanos is kind of the big one that got a massive buff to PvP. So we'll start off with Angel. I think Angel is okay. I probably should have changed good to okay now that I'm looking at it. Whatever, good, okay is pretty much the same, mainly because you have to consider this. tier 4s are so expensive. So to say that a tier 4 is good is essentially an omission, like an admission that the character is bad, right? Like it's too early in the tier 4 cycle to say, oh, I should tier 4 a good tier 4. No, you want to tier 4 the great ones, you want to tier 4 the meta ones, the staples. The good, the bad, and the ugly, you just kind of want to ignore them because they're just not very good. So yeah, I think we'd put Angel there. I think he may be a little bit better than some people think. Like I think maybe his value has climbed a little bit with how often they are debuffing other metas and how it affects characters that don't have iframe ignore. But I do still think he is, underperforming. Beta Ray Bill actually doesn't have any PvP value, but I would say he's also a good tier 4. Like I think he's borderline great. I would say I would kind of put him ahead of Angel, but he has no PvP value. But he's got amazing value as a support. He can be a lead, and he's actually a strong damage dealer in his own right. So he does have a lot of value, just not much for PvP. Cyclops, pretty embarrassing what they did for him. He basically is in a league of his own, in awful. It still blows my mind that they released a tier 4 with no uniform. And I'm really happy, I gotta say, with the community's response, because the community rallying behind how badly they treated Cyclops and really making it clear that we don't want to see this kind of shit again has hopefully drilled it into the devs' minds that we never want to see this shit again. Never, ever release a tier 4 without a uniform. That shit is straight ass, my dog. That shit is straight ass. So, yeah. Ebony Maw. I would say disappointing. And I would say actually more disappointing than Angel. Now, this is not a seasonal uniform. That's true. Whereas Angel's is a seasonal, right? Ebony's is not seasonal. But Space Hitler really fails on two important tracks. One, he doesn't have a very strong support ability like Angel does. His support ability is not bad, but it's just not nearly as strong. Like Angel, you can plug into any team, right? Any PvP team, boom, Angel's in there, debuff cleanse. Ebony's only applies to the Black Order. And as we've seen, there's no one in the Black Order. There's just Black Swan and Ebony and himself, right? So he really doesn't have any buffs. And yeah, the universal thing, I'm talking about his artifact with that Black Order stuff. But with the universal thing, it is good, but it's not enough to make him useful, despite the fact that three of the strongest PvP metas are all universal. Thanos, Silver Surfer, and Sentry. The problem is that Ebony just doesn't bring enough extra value, right? There's just not enough there. So I actually think he's a little bit worse than Angel, and I actually would put him in the bad category. He may be better like on a one-to-one basis, but overall what he's bringing to your team, plus the fact that he essentially lacks synergy otherwise. Like he does things for other characters by buffing the damage they deal to universals and reducing the damage they take from universals, but he has no synergy. Like he doesn't, he buffs himself when he's attacking universals, but he's just gonna get one shot by Sentry or whatever. So it's not really relevant. Whereas, and there's basically no buffs for him to get from other characters, unless it's just straight up generic villain buffs. Whereas Angel can take advantage of buffs to mutants, he can take advantage of buffs to speed types, right? he can actually synergize a little bit better. Speaking of synergizing a little bit better, Echo. Despite the fact that I think Echo's tier 4 was a major miss, again, she still has a little bit of value as a leadership. She still has a little bit of value as a support for speed types. And we see a bit of a resurgence in the speed meta when enough characters are banned in Otherworld Battle. You generally see, like, when Wolverine and Carnage are banned, it opens up the floor a lot for speed types. But I do still think Echo's tier 4 was bad, mainly because they chose not to give her iframe ignore. And she just doesn't have as much value. Like, I gotta put her in the bad category. If we're saying, like, just think about it this way. If you're saying that Angel is just barely good enough with debuff cleanse, which is the most useful support passive that you can have in today's PvP meta, right? Then that basically spells disaster for everybody else. Because for you to say, okay, this character doesn't have iframe ignore, but they have debuff cleanse, and they're barely useful enough. And then you're going to tell me there's 2 other PvP metas who don't have iframe ignore and don't have debuff cleanse? What are you guys doing? Are you guys taking this seriously at all? Like, is this a joke to you guys, or like, what's going on? So yeah, Gladiator's really good. I would actually put him in Godly. He's meta for PvE, which is already enough to put him in the great category. And then he's actually useful for PvP, mainly because of his healing and how tanky he is. But he can actually be useful for you in PvP. Not meta in PvP. Let's not get too crazy here. But he can be useful, and he can take down some metas or sort of pseudo metas, especially things like Conquest, with a PvP build. And seeing PvP players build him for PvP means that he's not simply a meme or like a one trick. He actually has some use. So yeah, I think Gladiator is one of the most valuable tier 4s they released this year, and it's actually really good, but you know, they have a long way to go because, as you can see, it's shit otherwise. Hulk, I think they did a really good job with Hulk. I would actually put him in the great category. I think putting him in the godly category makes sense, but you know, I don't want to be too much of a simp here for Hulk. He's basically like a Gladiator. He's easier to play than Gladiator. He's essentially meta or nearly meta with Dr. Octopus for all of the combat villain stuff, and then he has some PvP relevance. The only issue is that he suffers a lot more from having a PvE build, mainly because he loses all that HP damage, right, that he would have otherwise had, which is also doubles his defense and tankiness. So it's a little bit tougher for him to do hybrid sort of stuff, but he's still very, very good. He's just not as good in PvP, which I guess can be a little bit disappointing for some players. Madeline, like, Madeline's good. She's not great, but she's better than Angel. But it's just, I feel like, I don't know, they didn't cook her long enough, or they released her and then they released too many strong characters after her. So I'm actually going to put her in good. Some people are going to disagree with me here. She basically, like, she has immortality, you know, she has a lot of effects, but I use her these days and I'm so disappointed, man. And I have a near max build on her and I'm so disappointed. I've tried different brilliant CTPs and nothing really sticks. And she just gets blown up. She gets absolutely blown up by stronger metas, particularly like Thanos, Sentry, and Silver Surfer. She just gets blown to bits, dude. And it's just kind of annoying. Yeah, I don't know. Like, for a character that was released less than 6 months ago, where is she in the meta, dude? Where, like, there's a whole update around her. She's the most expensive character because you got to get Hope, you got to get Rachel. And like, where is she on the meta, bro? Where? And the thing is, they released Madeline knowing they were going to release a bunch of speed types to counter her. Not that they counter. I'm not saying Angel, Echo, and Quicksilver counter her. I'm just saying that, like, speed types in general have type advantage versus blast types. So they should have made her stronger, man. I feel like they could have made her like 20% stronger and she would not have broken the meta. Mystique, very little PvP value, mostly PvE value. I think Mystique is good. I think she's hard to play. I think she's annoying to play, and I think she just doesn't move the needle enough for, you know, for getting a tier 4 essentially, right? Like, one day every 2 weeks of just ABX, it's not really enough. Like, they needed to look at that and realize she's not used that often and say, okay, we're gonna make her like really fun to play and really easy to play. But they decided, okay, hey, she's not used very often, so we're going to make her absolutely fucking annoying to play. And her skills don't even look that cool compared to how cool they looked when we first released Mystique, right? They're just kind of like rehashed. Like, oh, she's transforming into Colossus again. Like, okay, guys, we get it, you know? Like, and you take away the transformation into Wolverine. Like, what are you guys doing? I don't know, man. I personally was very disappointed in Mystique. I know some ABX heads will disagree with me, but they're ABX heads. We got Sentry here, obviously beyond God tier, just insane. Silver Surfer, just insane. Like, they absolutely nailed it with these two. Thanos, I would also say, is insane. As much as I've shit on the devs for really bad tier 4 releases like Ebony, Cyclops, Angel, Echo, and Madeline, and maybe Mystique, I have to say that for these cats up here, and in particular the last three that I just ranked, Sentry, Surfer, and Thanos, they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. They crushed it. And that's good because these are some of the most expensive tier 4s in the game. So the fact that you actually are getting bang for your buck, you are getting your money's worth, is good. It just sucks that they couldn't do that for everybody else. And it sucks that they specifically couldn't do it for Madeline because, like, what is this, misogyny? Are you guys in your Cynicalex era? Like, it's cringe, bro. Thor's good. I think he's certainly better than he was before. I think some people maybe underestimate him, but he's mostly just a world boss kind of. He's just a kind of world boss dude, you know? He's not, and maybe GBR. He's not really doing much outside of world boss and GBR. He could still do ABL, but he's going to be worse than straight up. I think he's straight up worse than his dad, Odin, and he's also straight up worse than Gladiator for the same ABL content. So yeah, Quicksilver again. It's like, what are you guys doing, right? You're almost there. You almost got it right. After missing iframe ignore on back-to-back speed tier 4s, you finally figure out that you have to give iframe ignore to a tier 4, but then you don't give him damage reduction. So what exactly is the thought process here, guys? Right? It's just, is it take a penny, leave a penny? Are we at Apu's Quickie Mart here? Like, what is the logic, right? What are we doing here, right? Are we at daycare? Like, why are we leaving children behind? You know, I so badly want to click bad, but I think it's not fair, so I will click good. But, like, dude, they really need to get their shit together, man. There's so much mid this year. Look at how much mid there is. It's crazy. Scarlet Witch is fantastic. I want to put her in godly, but I'll put her in great. I think it's kind of fair given the heavyweight juggernauts up here. So yeah, as you can see, guys, more than half of the tier 4s this year are kind of just caca-poo-poo. You know, you could maybe pick a couple of the characters out of this list and elevate them to great, but then let's say you take 2 out, you still have 4, 6, 7. You have 7 of the whatever 9, right? You have 7 of the 16, right? Is it 16? 6, 12, 13, 14, 15. 6 out of the 15, almost half, are just terrible, are borderline useless. And so at this point in the video, I was going to cut to the fact that I have almost 20,000 Carbonadium, even though I'm tier 4ing all of the expensive tier 4s, like, you know, Sentry, Silver Surfer, Scarlet Witch, Gladiator, because there's just so much shit to skip. There's so much easy shit to skip. Like, anyone with a pulse skipped Cyclops. Most people with a pulse skipped either Ebony or Echo or both, right? It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I understand 2 of the characters on this list already had, or 3 of the characters, I should say, already had tier 4. So that does reduce the cost a little bit. But at the same time, man, like, they got to make better tier 4s. This is the moneymaker these days. This is the moneymaker. So they got to, you know, they got to figure this shit out because this is kind of cringe, bro. When 60% of my rank is basically bad. I know it says good, but it's basically just okay. Anyways, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Oh, and check the description. Yes, check the description for this to rank, to rank yourself. I do want to see, you know, the participants go up and the votes go up. Obviously, the video's not live yet, but yeah. Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Go vote. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.